The buyout, 3 years of a hidden marriage, and my wife wanted a divorce. I didn't fight it. The next day, she showed up as the ruthless new CEO who'd just acquired my company. And her first order of business? Me. Sitting at the head of the conference table, she snapped, "Get him in here to pour my coffee." The HR director's knees nearly buckled. "Ms. Thompson, your ex-husband finalized his resignation yesterday. He didn't just burn the bridge. He nuked it from orbit." 01. The million-dollar insult, the heavy door of the conference room slammed shut, sealing in the storm of Claire Thompson's impending fury. I stood on the sidewalk below the glass and steel tower, my phone buzzing in my pocket. It was a text from Mark, my team lead, an old friend from college. "Leo, man, that was a scorched earth exit. You should see Claire's face. She looks like she just swallowed a hornet. She was just asking who the hell approved your immediate resignation." I typed back a simple sorry and shoved the phone back in my pocket. I looked up at the building where I'd spent the last 3 years, the Seattle sun glinting off the windows. It was bright, but it couldn't touch the ice in my chest. Yesterday afternoon, outside the King County Courthouse, Claire stood there in a pristine, custom-tailored white pantsuit, clutching the freshly signed divorce papers. She looked at me with the same detached indifference she might give a condemned building. Reaching into a ridiculously expensive Hermes bag, she pulled out a cashier's check and floated it toward me. $1 million. Her voice was flat, like someone tossing a coin to a beggar. "Take this and get out of my sight. You've been living in my condo, eating my food for 3 years. Consider this a severance package. It's more than enough for someone like you to live on for the rest of your life." The wind whipped the corner of the check, making it flutter. I stared at her face, flawlessly beautiful and impossibly cruel, and felt a sudden, jarring sense of unfamiliarity. 3 years ago, when Thompson Industries was on the brink of collapse, I married her and went undercover, anonymously feeding them the life-saving tech they needed under the moniker L. To protect her fragile ego, I played the part of a simple programmer, a nobody. I come home from work every day to cook her dinner, do her laundry, and give her foot rubs while she scrolled through her phone. I thought my devotion would eventually earn her love. Instead, the moment she was successful, she threw me away like trash. "Not enough for you." Claire's brow furrowed when I didn't take the check, her disgust palpable. "Leo, you need to learn your place. You're a programmer from some no-name state school, pulling in what, 80 grand a year? You'll never see $1 million again in your life. Don't be greedy." I laughed, a dry, bitter sound. I ignored the check and met her cold eyes. "Okay," I said softly. "Just one word." Claire froze, thrown off. She had clearly expected me to beg, to grovel, to rage about splitting assets. My calm acceptance unnerved her. "Don't pretend you're above this," she sneered, dropping the check onto the pavement. "The money's been offered. It's not my problem if you don't take it. Don't ever expect me to give you a second thought." With that, she spun on her heel, slid into the back of a black Maybach, and left me in a cloud of exhaust. I bent down, not for the check, but to brush the dust from my pant leg. The wind caught the $1 million piece of paper and sent it skittering down a nearby storm drain. I went back to the condo. No, her condo. It took me 10 minutes to pack. Besides a few changes of clothes, there wasn't a single trace of me in that home. For 3 years, I had lived like a ghost, a hired hand. Standing on a downtown overpass with my single suitcase, I emailed HR. The reason was simple. Personal reasons, effective immediately. Mark called instantly, his voice frantic. "Leo, are you insane? Project Olympus is at a critical stage. You're the only one who understands the foundational architecture. If you leave now, the whole thing goes critical." "I'm tired, Mark," was all I said. He was silent for a long moment before sighing. "It's about her, isn't it? All right, I'll push it through. I'll make sure you get your final paycheck tonight. Just go and don't look back." Now, standing on the bustling street, I felt a profound sense of release. My phone rang again. It was an unknown number with a repeating 8 suffix. I answered. A woman's voice, lazy but sharp as a razor, purred on the other end. Darling, I heard you're back on the market. That chief technology partner position at Stellar Tech has had your name on it for 3 years. Interested now?" It was Vivian Vance, the top tech headhunter in the country, and the only person who knew who I really was. I looked at the distant Thompson Industries tower. "I'm in," I said. "Why the hell not?" If Claire Thompson thought I was worthless, then I was going to show her just how far out of her league I'd always been. 02. The worthless husband who held the keys. Claire Thompson sat in her new, oversized leather CEO chair, her chest heaving. She never imagined that on her first day, her spineless ex-husband would slap her across the face so hard. The blow was invisible, but it stung more than a physical strike. Gone. Claire slammed a file onto the massive mahogany desk, her voice shrill. What you paid for? A core developer resigns without an exit interview? Without a transition plan? He just walks out in the middle of the night? What does he think this is, a fast food joint? The HR director was sweating bullets, staring at his shoes. Mark, the director of technology, sat beside him. He pushed his glasses up his nose, his tone neutral. Ms. Thompson, Leo Morgan was hired as a junior programmer. Per company policy, which you yourself drafted to streamline downsizing, junior staff can resign at will, are not subject to non-compete clauses, and are not involved in transitioning confidential assets. Claire was speechless. It was true. To humiliate me, she had insisted on a corporate restructuring before the acquisition was even final, setting up policies that made it easy to fire lower-level employees on a whim. A junior programmer. Claire ground her teeth, a cold smirk on her face. Fine. Just fine. He's just one coder. The world doesn't revolve around him. Mark, Project Olympus moves forward. I want a working demo by next week. Mark looked at her with an expression that was almost pity. I'm afraid that's impossible, Miss Thompson. And why is that? Because the entire foundational algorithm for Project Olympus was written solo by Leo. Mark spread his hands. It's an L code, a proprietary, highly complex architecture. Besides Leo, no one in this company can decipher it. He's gone. Project Olympus is now just a pile of digital garbage. What did you say? Claire shot to her feet. The movement was so abrupt she knocked over a coffee cup, the dark liquid spilling across the desk and onto her expensive white suit. She didn't even notice. Her eyes were locked on Mark. Are you joking? Lau, the man who couldn't figure out how to change a light bulb without my instruction? He's the lead architect? Ed could? You gotta be senile. In her mind, Leo was a dull, unambitious man. His entire world was the kitchen and her laundry. He handed over his meager paycheck and had to ask her for $20 just to buy a six-pack. How could a man like that be the linchpin of a multi-billion-dollar project? Believe what you want, Ms. Thompson, Mark said, gathering his files and standing. Without Leo, Project Olympus is dead in the water. If you want to salvage it, your only option is to ask him to come back. Ask him. Claire laughed as if it were the most absurd thing she'd ever heard. You want me to beg that kept man to come back? In his dreams. I don't believe this. Throw enough money at the problem, and someone will solve it. Start recruiting. Offer $1 million salary. No, $2 million. I'll poach the best talent in the country before I go crawling back to him. She snatched her phone and dialed her assistant. I want Leo Morgan blacklisted from the entire tech industry. I want to make sure he can't get a job sweeping floors in this city. Let's see how long he lasts before he comes crawling back to me, begging for scraps. Hanging up, Claire took a deep breath, forcing herself to calm down. This was just a minor setback, she told herself. A man like Leo was nothing without her. She would simply wait for him to come to his senses and realize how desperately he needed her. She had no idea that, at that very moment, I was sitting in the top-floor office of the Stellar Tech Tower. Vivian Vance, stunning in a scarlet red dress, handed me a glass of wine. Welcome back to the throne, Elle, she said with a killer smile. If Claire Thompson ever finds out she threw a king out with the trash, she's going to have an aneurysm. I took the glass and looked out at the city sprawling beneath us. She won't, I said quietly. She'll just think I'm being ungrateful. In her world, the only thing that was real was that $1 million check. So what's the plan? Vivian watched me, intrigued. A hostile takeover of Thompson Industries? Not yet. I took a sip of wine, my eyes hardening. The best part of a cat-and-mouse game isn't eating the mouse. It's watching it squirm, watching it realize there's no escape. She's so proud of her business acumen, isn't she? I'm going to meet her in her own arena, and I'm going to dismantle that pride, piece by piece. 03. The beginning of the end, 3 days. It only took 3 days for Claire Thompson to understand what it felt like to fall from the heavens into a pit of mud. Project Olympus was in a total meltdown. The system, once running smoothly, began throwing constant errors the day after I left. By day 3, it was completely dead. It wouldn't even boot to the login screen. The client's calls were blowing up her phone. "Ms. Thompson, is this the cutting-edge AI you promised? It can't even turn on. We have a signed agreement. If this isn't resolved in 3 days, you owe us a penalty of $300 million, plus 5% of Thompson Industries stock." Claire paced her office like a caged animal. The so-called experts she'd hired at exorbitant rates were staring at the screen, sweating profusely as they looked at lines of code that might as well have been hieroglyphics. What was this logic? It defies every known programming convention. This wasn't written by a human. It's like a god writing poetry, or a devil casting a curse. "Ms. Thompson, the encryption layers here are military grade. A brute force attempt will trigger a self-destruct sequence. We'll lose everything. Not even God can save it then." Listening to their reports, Claire's face went white as a sheet. She finally realized Mark hadn't been lying. The meek, subservient man who brought her coffee in bed held the very lifeblood of her company in his hands. "Useless. You're all useless." Claire swept a stack of documents off her desk, sending them flying at the experts. "You talk a big game, but when it matters, you can't even read a line of code. Get out. All of you get out." She was alone in the cavernous office. Slumping in her chair, she stared out at the city lights, a chilling realization dawning on her for the first time. $300 million was a painful blow, but it wouldn't kill Thompson Industries. But 5% of the company's stock, along with the catastrophic loss of reputation, was a price she could not afford to pay. She was the new heir. If she fumbled a project this massive on her first week, the old sharks on the board of directors would eat her alive. "Now," she whispered his name, the syllables catching in her throat. Before, she said it with contempt. Now, it was laced with a venomous hatred and a fear she refused to acknowledge. She picked up her phone and found the number she had blocked, her thumb hovering over the screen, trembling. Her pride wouldn't let her press the call button. "I will find you," she seethed. She dialed a private investigator. "I want Leo Morgan's current address. Now." 2 hours later, the investigator messaged back. "Ms. Thompson, I can't find him." "What do you mean, you can't find him?" she screamed into the phone. "He's a person, not a ghost. He can't have just vanished. I'm telling you, it's impossible. His personal information, social security, DMV, everything, it's all been placed under a high-level security seal. We don't have the clearance to even peek at it. His old apartment lease was terminated, and the landlord said he left with nothing. It's like he never existed in this city at all." The phone slipped from her hand, thudding onto the plush carpet. A high-level security seal? How was that possible? Leo was just a programmer. His only background was some rural town in the Midwest. Where'd he get that kind of power? A terrifying sense of losing control tightened its grip around her throat. She had always seen Leo as a kite, with a string held firmly in her hand. She could let him fly or bring him crashing down at her leisure. But now the string had snapped, and the kite hadn't just flown away. It had transformed into an eagle, circling high above, looking down on her. Just as despair began to set in, there was a knock on her office door. Her assistant peeked in. "Ms. Thompson, an invitation just arrived. It's from Stellar Tech. They're holding a launch event tomorrow for a revolutionary new AI system, Project Morningstar." Claire's head snapped up. Stellar Tech, her company's biggest rival, to announce a new product at this exact moment. It was a direct attack on Project Olympus. "We're going," Claire said, standing up, a dangerous glint in her eyes. "I want to see what kind of tricks that Fox Vivian Vance has up her sleeve. And while we're there, start recruiting. I'm sure Stellar Tech's lead developer has a price." She smoothed her hair, the mask of the proud, unshakable so, slipping back into place. She had no idea that she was walking into an execution. 04. The man in the spotlight, the Stellar Tech launch event, was a spectacle. The auditorium was packed, shimmering under a dazzling light display. Tech industry titans, venture capitalists, and the media filled every seat, all buzzing with anticipation for the mysterious Project Morningstar. Claire sat in the front row of the VIP section, her expression grim. She watched Vivian Vance command the stage, a pang of jealousy twisting in her gut. Vivian was always so effortlessly brilliant, while she was here, drowning in a crisis of her own making. And now, Vivian's voice boomed through the sound system. Please join me in welcoming the Chief Technology Partner of Stellar Tech and the Chief Architect of Project Morningstar, Mr. L. The lights dimmed, and a single spotlight hit the center of the stage. A platform began to rise. Claire looked up, mildly interested, already calculating how much it would cost to poach this Mr. L. But as the figure came into full view, her pupils contracted, and she froze in her seat. It was a young man. He wore a bespoke navy blue suit that fit him perfectly, making him look tall and powerful. The cheap, black-framed glasses he used to wear were gone, revealing a pair of sharp, piercing eyes. He radiated a quiet confidence, an aura of absolute control. Claire had looked at that face for 3 years. It was the first face she saw in the morning and the last one she saw at night. But that face had always worn a placating smile, had always seemed dull and lifeless. Now that same face was sharp, commanding, almost godlike. Lao. The name escaped her lips in a choked whisper, a sound only she could hear. How could it be him? The loser? The kept man? The house husband whose greatest skill was making pot roast? He was the legendary industry genius, L. The idea was so preposterous it felt like the world had turned upside down. On stage, I scanned the audience, my gaze pausing for less than a second on Claire's stunned, ashen face. Hello, everyone. My name is Leo Morgan. Some of you may know me as L. My voice, amplified by the speakers, was calm and resonant, filled with an authority that captivated the entire room. Project Morningstar isn't just a system. It's the future. It solves every pain point of current AI on the market. Especially, I paused, a hint of mockery in my tone, certain half-baked products claiming to be an Olympus that can't even manage to boot up. A wave of laughter rippled through the audience. Claire's face flushed a deep, mortified crimson. She dug her nails into her palms. He was humiliating her. In front of the entire industry, he was putting her on trial and executing her publicly. I continued the presentation. The flawless stream of code, the breathtaking interface, the terrifying processing speeds. Every feature drew gasps of awe from the crowd. And every feature was a brutal slap to Claire's face. Her prize project Olympus was a child's crayon drawing next to this masterpiece. This is impossible. This has to be impossible, Claire muttered to herself, her mind a chaotic blank. She remembered all the things she'd said to him. What do you know? You live in a bubble. Don't touch my work laptop. You couldn't afford to replace it. Your entire monthly salary wouldn't even cover dinner for my clients. It turned out she was the clown all along. She had been holding a king in her hand and threw him away, convinced he was a worthless card. The presentation ended. The thunderous applause was deafening. Reporters swarmed the stage. A forest of microphones and cameras pointed at me. Mr. L., why did you remain anonymous for so long? Is it true you just resigned from Thompson Industries? Was it overcompensation? I took a microphone, looked directly into the cameras, and smiled faintly. Compensation? Ms. Thompson once offered me a check for $1 million. A murmur went through the reporters. $1 million. That's not insignificant. I added, it was a severance payment for being her ex-husband. The entire hall fell into a stunned, dead silence. Every single head swiveled in unison to lock on a Claire Thompson in the front row. Their gazes were a mixture of shock, amusement, and the kind of pity you'd reserve for a village idiot. The CEO of Thompson Industries divorced a titan of the tech world, a man worth billions, for a measly $1 million payout. It was, without a doubt, the most pathetic business blunder of the decade. Claire sat pinned in her seat, feeling the blood turn to ice in her veins. She wanted to stand up, to run, but her legs refused to obey. 05. A conversation too late. In the underground parking garage. I had just pulled my car door open when a figure lunged out of the shadows, grabbing the handle. It was Claire. The arrogant CEO from the auditorium was gone. Her hair was a mess, her eyes were red-rimmed, and her expensive white suit was smudged with dirt. Lao! She gasped, her voice trembling. We need to talk. I sat in the driver's seat, one hand on the steering wheel, and looked at her, Vivian, in the passenger seat, was calmly touching up her lipstick in a vanity mirror, completely ignoring the drama. "Ms. Thompson, can I help you?" My tone was detached, the way you'd speak to a stranger. That title, Ms. Thompson, was a needle in her heart. I had always called her Claire, or even Honey, though she never reciprocated. Why? Why did you lie to me? Claire bit her lip, tears welling up in her eyes as she adopted the role of the victim. You're L. Why didn't you ever tell me? Was it fun for you, watching me parade around like an idiot? You were laughing at me this whole time, weren't you? I almost laughed out loud. Even now, after all of this, her first thought was how she had been wronged. Claire, in 3 years of marriage, did you ever once give me a chance to speak? My voice was dangerously cold. Every time I tried to talk about my work, you'd say, "Shut up, I don't have time for your nonsense." Every time I wanted to show you a personal project, you'd say, "Don't bother me with your pathetic little code snippets." And now you're blaming me for not telling you. Claire was speechless, her face pale. She remembered those moments. It was true. She had never seen him as an equal. But you can't go to Stellar Tech, she said desperately, grabbing my sleeve. They're my biggest rival. This is betrayal. Leo, come back with me. I'll make you the head of Project Olympus. I'll make you a vice president. I'll give you whatever stock you want. The million wasn't enough. How about 10 million? She was still trying to solve everything with money. I gently pulled my arm from her grasp, the movement slow but final. Ms. Thompson, do you really think I need your money now? I gestured to the car, a brand new McLaren, then to Vivian. Stellar Tech gave me a 30% equity stake as a founding partner. Vivian gave me total creative freedom and respect. You gave me a check you threw on the ground and 1,000 contemptuous glares. No, it wasn't like that. Claire panicked, switching to emotional blackmail. Leo, I know you still love me. You were so good to me for 3 years. You can't just turn that off. You're just angry, I get it. I am sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, just come home. I'll cook for you tonight. Don't bother. I cut her off, pulled out my phone, and played an audio recording. It was her voice from the day of our divorce, raw and clear in the cavernous garage. Get out of my sight. The very sight of you makes me sick. The sound hung in the air, brutally sharp. All the color drained from Claire's face. I hit the delete button as she watched. You see, I'm very obedient. You told me to get lost, so I did. You should be happy. With that, I raised the window. Let's go, I said to Vivian. The engine roared to life, and the sports car shot out of the garage. In the rearview mirror, I saw Claire collapse to the ground, a discarded doll in the harsh fluorescent light, utterly broken. Vivian glanced over at me, feeling sorry for her. I looked at the road ahead, my focus absolute. That part of me died a long time ago. All that's left now is disgust. 06. Pulling the rug out back at Stellar Tech, I didn't waste a moment. I called an immediate meeting with the executive team. If we were going to war, we were going to win it decisively. Claire thought my silence was the end of it. It was only the beginning. My goal wasn't just to beat her. It was to burn her counterfeit empire to the ground. Thompson Industries is in chaos, Vivian said, handing me a tablet. Their stock has tanked, investors are pulling out, and I hear Claire spent the entire afternoon smashing things in her office. It's not enough. I tapped a finger on the table. Half of their core technology team are people I personally mentored. They may have contracts, but their loyalty is with me. I looked at Vivian. Draft some new employment offers. I'll cover all their legal fees and penalties for breaking their contracts. Double their salaries and offer aggressive stock options. I want the entire brain trust of Thompson Industries working for us by the end of the week. Vivian's eyes lit up. Now that's how you pull the rug out. Vicious. I love it. Over the next 2 days, Thompson Industries experienced an unprecedented mass exodus. The first to jump ship was Mark. He'd had enough of Claire's tyranny. Leo, I've been waiting for this call, he boomed over the phone. This morning, Claire tried to make me sign a pledge, promising to fix the system or be fired. I told her where she could shove it. I'm with you, brother. One by one, they followed. The lead data scientist, the senior algorithm engineer, the entire server architecture team. Within 48 hours, 15 of the 18 core members of Project Olympus had submitted their resignations and moved to Stellar Tech. Claire got the news while she was in a desperate meeting with investors. trying to explain the project delays. Her assistant entered, trembling, and placed a thick stack of resignation letters on the table. Ms. Thompson, the tech department is empty. Crash. Claire crushed the wine glass in her hand. Shards of glass bit into her palm, and blood dripped onto the polished table. She didn't feel the pain. All she felt was the crushing terror of being utterly and completely abandoned. Now, you are ruthless. She didn't bother to bandage her hand. She stormed over to Stellar Tech with her legal team, trying to intimidate her former employees in the lobby. You're all in breach of contract. I'll sue every last one of you. I'll ruin you, Claire shrieked, looking less like a CEO and more like a cornered animal. I emerged from the elevator with Mark and the others. Save your breath, Miss Thompson. I stood on the top step, looking down at her. I reviewed their non-compete agreements. There's a loophole. It states that if the company demonstrates gross mismanagement leading to a project suspension, employees are entitled to immediate, penalty-free termination. A clause, I believe, that you yourself added to make seasonal layoffs easier. Remember? Claire froze. Every single arrow she had fired was now coming back to pierce her. Leo, do you have to be so cruel? She asked, her voice cracking, her eyes red. What good is it to you if my company fails? After all, we were married. Married! I walked down the steps, closing the distance between us until she was forced to stumble backward. When you threw that check on the ground, when you told HR to get rid of me, when you called me worthless, did you remember we were married then? I stared at her, my voice cold as steel. This is business, Claire. And in business, there are winners and losers. Right now, I'm the partner at Stellar, and you're the CEO of Thompson. There's nothing between us but the bottom line. Show our guest out. I turned and walked away without a backward glance. Security guards moved in and politely but firmly escorted a stunned Claire Thompson out of the building. Through the glass doors, I saw her slump onto a bench by the road, burying her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. I felt nothing. This wasn't the end. Not by a long shot. 07. The storm and a cold memory news that Thompson Industries was on the verge of bankruptcy spread through the city like wildfire. Banks were calling in their loans, and suppliers were cutting them off. The once untouchable Claire Thompson had become a pariah. In a desperate attempt to salvage her situation, she shed every last scrap of her pride. My phone started lighting up with texts. Leo, my stomach hurts so badly. I'm out of medicine. Can you please come check on me? Leo, I tried to make that beef bourguignon you love. I kind of burned it, but I wanted you to try. Leo, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. If you come back, I'll do your laundry. I'll cook for you. I'll be your housekeeper. Please, I'm begging you, don't leave me. I read them and felt nothing but a grim irony. I remember the time I had a 102-degree fever and asked her to get me a glass of water. She'd accused me of being dramatic and told me to get it myself. Now her stomach hurt, and she expected me to come running? I put my phone on silent and tossed it aside. That night, a torrential rainstorm lashed against the city. I was leaving the office, heading for my car. The headlights cut through the downpour, illuminating a lone figure standing by the entrance. Claire. She had no umbrella and was soaked to the bone, her hair plastered to her face. She looked like a ghost, clutching a thermos to her chest. When she saw my car, her eyes lit up, and she ran into the middle of the road to block my path. Now! She pounded on the driver's side window, her voice a desperate cry. You're finally here. I've been waiting for 5 hours. I made you soup. It's still hot. Please, just have a little. Rain streamed down her face, mixing with her tears. Vivian, in the passenger seat, frowned. Should I call security? No need. I lowered the window, just a crack. A hopeful smile broke through Claire's desperate expression. She fumbled with the thermos, trying to pass it to me. Here, drink it before it gets cold. Ms. Thompson. My calm voice stopped her cold. Doesn't this scene feel a little familiar to you? Claire froze. 2 years ago, on a night just like this, I had come to her office to bring her an umbrella. I saw her get into another man's car, a wealthy client. I ran after them, trying to give her the umbrella, and she rolled down the window, just enough to snap. Go home. Don't get my car seats wet. You're embarrassing me. The chill I felt that night was far colder than this rain. Some things, once they go cold, can never be reheated, I said, my gaze dropping to the thermos in her hands. And another thing, I don't like leftovers. I didn't then, and I don't now. I raised the window and hit the accelerator. The tires sent a wave of grimy water splashing all over her. In the rearview mirror, I saw the thermos fall from her hands, its contents spilling onto the asphalt to mix with the mud. She sank to her knees in the middle of the road and let out a raw, gut-wrenching sob. I didn't look back. The tears of a crocodile are never worth your sympathy. 08. The family secret Claire was completely and utterly broken. It wasn't just my rejection. It was the next revelation that destroyed the very foundation of her world. With nowhere left to turn, she went to the old Thompson family estate on Lake Washington and fell to her knees before her grandfather, weeping about my betrayal, calling me an ungrateful dog. "Grandpa, you have to put Leo in his place. We took him in, and this is how he repays us." Old man Thompson sat in his high-backed chair, his expression filled with a deep disappointment as he looked at his favorite grandchild. "Claire, did you really think Leo Morgan was the one who married up?" With a heavy sigh, her grandfather retrieved a faded photograph from his desk drawer and tossed it in front of her. In the photo, a much younger version of her grandfather was respectfully lighting a cigarette for another, more powerful-looking man. The man's features were strikingly similar to mine. "Who is this?" Claire stammered. "That is Leo's grandfather, Arthur Morgan," her grandfather said, his voice heavy with memory. "He was a titan of his time, the real king of this city. 30 years ago, my company went bankrupt. I was deep in debt, standing on the edge of a bridge, ready to jump. It was Arthur who pulled me back. He not only paid off all my debts, but gave me the capital to start over. That is the only reason Thompson Industries exists today. Without the Morgan family, there would be no Thompson legacy. There would be no silver spoon life for you, Claire." She stared at him, dumbfounded, as if struck by lightning. When a Morgan family retreated from the public eye, Arthur asked only one thing of me before he passed. Arthur said his grandson, Leo, was a good, humble man who deserved a simple life. He proposed that our families be joined, if fate allowed. Leo didn't marry you for our money, Claire. He married you to honor a promise between our families, to repay a debt of honor. He hid who he was because he didn't want to pressure you. He wanted you to fall in love with the man, not with the Morgan name." The old man grew more agitated, slamming his cane on the hardwood floor. "And what did you do? You treated him like a servant. You shattered his dignity. You took the grandson of your family's savior, your greatest benefactor, and you threw him out like garbage. What have you done? What have you done?" Claire crumpled to the floor, her mind reeling. The kept man she had looked down upon was the true heir to an empire, and she was the ungrateful wretch who had betrayed a sacred trust. Her entire sense of self-worth, her pride, her arrogance, it all disintegrated into ash. A tidal wave of shame, regret, and utter despair washed over her. "What have I done?" she wailed, her voice a hollow echo of her former self. She finally understood why I had been so calm on the day of our divorce. Because in my world, Claire Thompson and her entire fortune were, and always had been, completely insignificant. 09. The final bid, but Claire wasn't finished. Not quite. The truth sent her into a state of pathological obsession. She convinced herself that if she could just win the landmark Smart City government contract, the biggest tech project in the country, she could prove her worth and I would take her back. It was her last, desperate gamble. At the final presentation, the atmosphere was tense. Claire was gaunt, with dark circles under her eyes, but her gaze was feverish. She and her skeleton crew presented a proposal they had worked on for days, without sleep. To her credit, it was the best work of her life. She had even tried to mimic my architectural style in some of the designs, a pathetic attempt at an homage. When it was her turn to speak, she looked only at me, her voice pleading. "This proposal is named Legacy. Its core philosophy is that we must honor our foundations to build a future. Like relationships, even if things fall apart, if the foundation is strong, it can be rebuilt." The judges exchanged confused glances. This was a multi-billion-dollar government contract, and she was turning it into a therapy session. Then it was my turn. I walked onto the stage with Vivian, calm and confident. "Our proposal is titled Genesis. I launched the presentation, and a stunning holographic model of the city filled the room. Ms. Thompson spoke of legacy. With all due respect, I believe the very essence of technology is to look forward, not back. Dwelling on old code, old frameworks, and old relationships only holds us back. I gestured to the dynamic, flowing data streams in a hologram, my voice ringing with conviction. StellarTech's Genesis system discards all redundant architecture, built from the ground up on a new quantum algorithm. It doesn't patch up the past. It creates the future. I paused, letting the words sink in. Just like in life, some mistakes don't need to be fixed. They just need to be left behind. My meaning was unmistakable. The room erupted in applause. The judges were nodding vigorously, their faces lit with excitement. The contest was over. Faced with overwhelming innovation, Claire's sentimental, backward-looking proposal seemed weak and pitiful. A joke. She stood in the audience, swaying on her feet, the last flicker of light in her eyes finally extinguished. 10. The last gambit before the official announcement. Claire made one last, insane move. She intercepted me in the main hall, in front of all the cameras. Leo, wait. She pulled a document from her briefcase, her hands shaking violently. This is a stock transfer agreement. If you come back to me, if you forgive me, I will sign over my entire controlling interest in Thompson Industries to you. All of it. The hall erupted in a frenzy of whispers and camera flashes. The CEO of Thompson Industries was offering her entire empire to win back her ex-husband. Claire looked at me, fat tears rolling down her hollow cheeks, her pride ground into dust. I don't want any of it anymore. I don't want to be CEO. I don't want the money. I just want you. Leo, please, give me a chance to make it right. She was certain this was her trump card. No man could refuse such an offer. Vivian shot me a worried look. I stopped and looked at the weeping woman before me, then at the document that represented billions of dollars. I reached out my hand. A glimmer of hope flashed in Claire's eyes, but I simply pushed the papers aside, letting them scatter on the marble floor. You still don't get it, do you, Claire? I looked her dead in the eye, my voice terrifyingly calm. 3 years ago, I came to you with nothing, asking for nothing. All I wanted was a home, a warm meal, someone who would be happy to see me at the end of the day. If you had given me that, I would have given you my life. But now, a small, genuine smile touched my lips, a smile of pure liberation. Now, I have more than Thompson Industries could ever offer. I don't need to be given an empire. I can build my own. Your love is cheap, and your money is tainted. I want no part of either. I walked around her and didn't look back. Now, a gut-wrenching scream tore from her throat, followed by the heavy thud of a body hitting the floor. She had fainted. I kept walking. 11. Dust to Dust. StellarTech won the Smart City contract. Our stock value skyrocketed overnight, cementing our place as the new leader of the industry. Thompson Industries, having lost the bid on top of its recent scandals and brain drain, completely collapsed. 3 days later, it was announced that the company's assets would be acquired. The buyer was StellarTech. I didn't handle the acquisition myself. I left it all to Vivian. I had no interest in kicking a dying dog. It was no longer worth my time. Claire Thompson resigned in disgrace. I heard she spent her last day locked in her office, crying. The only thing she took with her was her wedding photo. It was a picture of me with a forced, awkward smile, standing next to a woman who looked at the camera with cold indifference. A perfect summary of our ridiculous marriage.